I have learned so much digging into Thomas Gale's triangulation of fingering systems for the double bass. This comes in 2 volumes, and it is a wonderful step-by-step approach to building your technique on the bass. I am really getting a lot out of it, and it is available in our sheet music store. We've got that linked up below, and let's chat with Mark Morton, who edited these books, about what these materials offer. We dig into cool titles like this and much more in our weekly email newsletter. If you're not on the list, consider subscribing. There's a link in the description below.
Well, first off, I need to make sure I cannot take credit for the book. It was authored by Thomas B. Gale, who sadly passed away about 7 years ago. But Tom Gale, he had over 30 years experience teaching strings in the public school. So he brings a lot of experience of music education knowledge that I actually don't have that same perspective. So I think that we were a good team on this.
This is a step-by-step method to developing your technique on bass, and it was developed by Tom Gale, who's quite an educator and had a lot of experience teaching in the string classroom. It's very organized and methodical, and he spends, in my opinion, just the right amount of time on each one of these building blocks to your bass technique.
I prefer to name the name of the position not by some number, because how many systems of numbering do we have out there? It's so confusing. I've been playing the bass for over half a century. I still don't know what position I'm in. But it's based on what the first finger plays on the G string.
So this is A position. If we do D position, and so instead of calling it third or second or first or whatever, just whatever the name of the note when you're in that position on the G string, whatever that name is, that's the name of the position. And the exercises start out quite simple, but there's guidance for metronome, there's guidance for using a drone, both of which are key tools even for the most advanced of bass players, and it's cool that he's recommending them being used from the very beginning. Lots of cool exercises, lots of nice melodic components, even from the very beginning. If we look at number 4. And then a retake. It's a nice way to teach some of these fundamental skills. And moving a little faster, here on number 6 with the 8th notes. Nothing but 1 and 4 for this entire first page right here. Pretty cool. Then we get into 1 and 2, so getting into minor. It is very, very melodic, even from these very initial exercises. And much like Progressive Repertoire by George Vance, which I've covered extensively, or the Suzuki method, this has a lot of melodies, of tunes you might recognize sprinkled throughout, and I think it's a great way to break up just exercises. This is a very melodic, melody-centric way to learn the double bass, and I think it's super cool.
The idea behind the triangulation of fingering systems, it's based on our foundation of playing the bass, that is the Simandl system 1-2-4. Of course, that is a truth of playing the instrument that is undeniable. However, maybe our Italian friends might beg to disagree. 1-3-4, okay, but it's still kind of the same idea. In other words, the hand covering a whole step. That's a truth that's sort of undeniable. And so Tom and I called that closed hand.
Then he takes you up to D position. 4th position in Simandl. Sounds a little like another system that I have talked about a lot on this channel. Getting up here to the neck block is really helpful because this one of the few landmarks on the bass. You've got right here, first position, you can kind of find with the scroll. You've got this D position in Thomas's verbiage with this system, or neck block position. And if you are using some other method like George Vance's progressive repertoire books or Suzuki or Simandl, I find this to be a really good supplement. It kind of combines some of the ideas, particularly when we get into the second volume, with maybe how George Vance approaches the bass with a lot of how Simandl approaches the bass. And this is great supplementary material for other methods, as well as being a complete method in and of its own. So anyone with some teaching experience is going to see a lot of value in these two brief lines. You have separate notes and slurred notes that you're practicing. You have the same notes in different spots on the bass. You've introduced the third position. You have gone from just the D string to the D and the G string. You have a shift up as well to the D position right here. I'm very impressed by the thought that went into this, and I know that this latest edition from Mark Morton as the editor has added some of the things that are in Mark's other books. So he's got the bold fingering indicating a shift, and he has a very clear what string things are supposed to be on that is marked and is marked as needed. And I think there's really no ambiguity about what string you're intended to be playing. Yeah, and so then there's this whole concept of triangulation of fingering systems. The book is actually named is the closed hand, the open hand, and thumb position. And Mark goes into detail about just how this all works.
The other cool thing that he does is that he organizes the thumb position. And I know Franco Petrarchi has a very similar system, that it's the minor third position. In other words, it's a minor third between the thumb and the third finger. So there's going to be a half step between each finger. And then there's the major third, which is usually a whole step between thumb and one, and then a half step between the following three, and then the perfect fourth position. And so it really makes it very, very clear in the students and the player's mind, what position are we in? And so the thumb position is not about what location you're in. We're not in 18th position or whatever. The idea is the interval that is spanned by the thumb and the third finger, plus some variations that can be found inside of that. So I think it's a very smart book. And as you pointed out, whatever technique Tom is presenting, he really presents it one step at a time, which is probably one of the things that he learned teaching in the public schools. You need to present one concept at a time. Now, of course, the third portion, or the third point of the triangle of the triangulation of fingering systems, is the open hand. And that's where you have a half step between each finger, and so therefore you can reach a minor third. Now, I know that there's a lot of folks that are a little bit frightened, maybe, of this technique. And I think that one of the reasons is there's a bit of a misunderstanding of this. And in other words, we actually don't use all four fingers. When we're playing diatonically, we're either going to use 1, 2, 4 or 1, 3, 4, but rarely use 1, 2, 3, 4. And the other really smart thing about these books is that he starts presenting this idea in the crook of the neck position, also known as D position. As you mentioned, that
Volume 2 is all about the open hand and thumb positions, so it's similar in its approach to the first volume, but now we're getting into how it works when you use open hand and then add thumb position. So here in the D position, we're starting off with an open hand, what's called a 1, 2, 4 pattern. Just like the first book, there are all kinds of lessons distilled down into each one of these exercises. They're quite cleverly mapped out, and there's a real logic to the sequencing that it really resonates with me. And we get into other scale patterns, natural minor scale pattern, and the harmonic minor scale pattern. Yeah, so this is much more of a scale book or exercise book than the first volume, but it still has etudes throughout, and Lots of hyper open hand. We're getting into some keys that I have nightmares about, but good to practice. And these etudes, I love these etudes. So triangulation etude number 1. Yeah, just a lovely way to get into both the open hand position and thumb position, and then to, it's called triangulation, to combine the closed, open, and thumb position so that you can move freely between them. Great work from Thomas Gale, great editing from Mark Morton. I love it, and we'll see you in the next one.